The All-Star break is finally here, and we're back to preview the unofficial second half of the season with division analysis, key injury news, trade rumors, the latest World Series futures, and more as Prime Sports Baseball, brought to you by Covers.com on the Prime Sports Radio Network, starts now. It's Monday, July 16th, 2018. I'm Greg DePalma, and it's time to talk baseball once again on Prime Sports Network. It's the All-Star break, so we promised we'd be here to preview the unofficial second half of the season and go over the latest World Series futures and more. So we're going to do that. Scott Zolotoro will join me in about 10 minutes from now, but let's first of all be joined by our first analyst, pro sports handicapper for Covers Experts. And by the way, make sure to visit Covers Experts at experts.covers.com. Take 50% off any purchase. Use the promo code PRIME50. That's PRIME50. Steve Merrill joining us. And Steve, what's going on in baseball since the last time we spoke to you that's actually been surprising?
Well, I think what's a little bit surprising is what's going on in the American League West. Both Oakland and Seattle playing very well, yet Houston still leads the division. You know, really the defending World Series champ, the team I thought was probably the team to beat coming in. But that American League West is pretty interesting to watch. We've got three teams that are capable of making the playoffs right now. Of course, one of them will not, because the Yankees and Red Sox pretty much have locked up, two spots, one of which is a wild card. But I think the biggest surprise right now has to be the National League East. Phillies and Braves really playing better than the Nationals. We always know Washington is an underachieving team. Thought maybe the fact that the Capitals finally got it done, that would spark the Nationals. We'll see if that happens in the second half. Keep in mind, Capitals the best team in the league for several seasons. They were only the fourth seed this year, and they finally win it. Wouldn't it be ironic when the Nationals underachieve, they finally win it as well?
Yeah, well, look, the Nationals wouldn't be where they are right now with all the injuries, and that's what
Correct.
We said in the beginning of the season. Actually, I've been saying this for 4 years in this division. The Nationals are going to win the division going away unless there's injuries, and the Nationals have injuries, and they have Bryce Harper. And Bryce Harper, I don't know. Maybe we'll find out soon. Maybe we'll find out at the end of the season. The only thing I could think of is the contract situation. There's no injuries, nothing that we've heard of. It's got to be psychological. If it was me, I would trade him, to be honest with you. I mean, if I didn't think I was going to get him back, if I can get something valuable for him, I'd get rid of him now. Maybe he's a distraction. Only they know. Problem with Mike Rizzo is that he doesn't make those types of moves. He's a good general manager. He's not a great one. And the reason he's not a great one yet is because he doesn't make those ballsy moves. And so I don't think he's going to do anything like trade Bryce Harper. But they get Strasburg back after the break, Zimmerman back after the break. If Eaton gets healthier, Murphy continues to get healthier, so forth and so on. I still think they're going to win this division. But if they continue to have injuries and things of that nature, then a surprise team is going to make it, like you said. Not that I expect the Phillies or Atlanta to do anything in the postseason, nor do I expect them to do anything as far as any major trades, even though I guess the Machado trade could be interesting, only if they know they're going to be able to re-sign him long term.
Yeah, and Machado's interesting also because the Orioles have been just terrible, obviously, and he's going to be gone sooner than later. And can you imagine how bad that offense is going to be without him? I doubt that'll spark them. You never know, though. It's funny. These ugly ducklings in September are often good plays in baseball. They call up a lot of young guys, and sometimes teams like the Orioles or the Royals, who are really struggling this year, so it can sometimes be good money makers in September. You get them at 2.5 to 1 odds, in a lot of games, and the young guys start playing hard. So we'll talk about that on the next show because that's a different aspect, the late season handicapping. But I agree with the injuries of the Nationals. They're still a very tempting team for me. Unfortunately, I used them earlier in the season at lesser odds, so I can't really load up on them anymore. But anybody that does not have something on them right now, they're probably worth a look. I think they still win this division. I think they're better than both the Phillies and the Braves. And as you said, it's injuries. They're a 500 team right now, and they're still beat up. Strasburg's the key. Can you imagine if you have like Scherzer and Strasburg in your rotation for a 7-game playoff series? They're going to go 4 or 5 of the 7 games. You got a pretty good chance to beat anybody with that pitching rotation.
Yeah, and I still think they're going to do something as well. And I think it has to be at the starting rotation. I don't know whether it's going to be a Cole Hamels or somebody like that. But the Nats have to make a move. I don't think they're not going to get rid of Victor Robles. They're not going to get rid of, maybe Michael Taylor would be a perfect trade chip. There's a few other guys down in the minor league system that you could deal. But I don't anticipate they're going to deal Robles. They're not going to. I don't even think they're going to deal Keyboom, their shortstop, who was in the Futures game yesterday. But they can go out and trade three or four other prospects if they want, as long as it's not one of their star prospects, and maybe see if they can go ahead and get themselves another starting pitcher. And yes, if they get to the postseason, they're going to be awful dangerous, especially after what you said with that hockey analysis, which is exactly what I'm thinking as well as a Nats fan, that this is probably the best thing to actually happen to them, is that they play meaningful games all the way through to the end of the regular season. As far as the other divisions, the Cubs and the Dodgers have moved into first place since the last time we spoke. Now the Dodgers only have a half-game lead, and for Arizona, it's going to be all about getting healthy. And they were a much more dangerous team at the beginning of the season when they were also healthy with that pitching staff. So I'm not going to completely rule them out just yet. But four teams separated by 4 games. So the trade deadline is going to be huge for that division.
Yeah, the key to winning in sports betting, whether it's future picks or just daily betting, is to always get the best number. And, if you can beat the closing line, you're going to have an advantage long term. And that's like I said with the Nationals. Unfortunately, I got them at 8-1 when the season began. I could have them at 20-1 now. I like them at 20-1 now, but I already have them 8-1. I don't want to double up. What I did do well, though, was our last show on June 6th. I took the Cubs at 15-1. They're now down to 6-1. So I liked the Cubs at the time. I thought there was value there, and it's starting to play out that way. I also had the Braves the show before that, of course. I think Atlanta was as high as maybe like 70-1 when I took them in that show on May 7th. And they went down to like 20-1 last show. Now they're 12-1. So, I missed out with the Nationals there, but Atlanta, I got a good price. I really like that play on the Cubs. I don't think Atlanta could win. As I said on the last show, Greg, I wish I could close out that trade like a commodities trade and take the other side and close it out, lock in the profit. But I like the Cubs at 15-1 because now they're 6-1, and they're definitely a team that could definitely win the whole thing.
Yeah, and also, I say the thing with the Cubs, though, and we talked about this earlier this season, they're not going to make any big moves. They can make a small move here and there, but they've already just destroyed their farm system the last couple of years, and it worked out. They won a World Series championship. They've got a lot of young players on their roster. They're going to be fine for years to come, and they're going to be able to spend in free agency. But I think they're done making huge trades. They just don't have enough ammunition down in the farm unless they're going to trade one of their top, young players that are, pretty much they're stocked even up in the major league roster. So maybe if they trade one of those guys, but they don't have the type of talent they used to have to make those types of deals. I think they're pretty much set as far as I'm concerned. Maybe another important arm in the bullpen. That's about it. But nobody like Chapman a few years ago.
Yeah, and I wonder if the Cubs have the starting pitcher some of these other teams have. I think another real X factor, we haven't gotten to the division yet, but the Dodgers and Kershaw. Kershaw has not been dominant since coming back from the disabled list. He doesn't seem to be quite the dominant pitcher he's been in years past. We'll see if he can regain that form by the postseason. But it's funny, all these teams are talking about if you really had to choose a 2-man rotation for the postseason, I still think I'd take the Nationals over anybody else in the league. If you could have Scherzer and Strasburg healthy, I don't think the Cubs or Dodgers have the Dodgers might have a 1-2 punch, if Kershaw's healthy, but I'm not sure the Cubs have a 1-2 punch to match the other two teams.
All right, and do you trust Colorado more or San Francisco more to make some sort of a run, make a trade at the deadline? Because San Francisco is another team that cannot afford to make any deals. They have to keep everybody they have because they don't have the greatest farm system in the world to begin with. So I can't imagine San Francisco is going to be much different, come August 1st. And Colorado, I don't know. I mean, at this point in time, I just don't know if you make any of those deals either. I think Colorado should try to keep what they have and just, continue to play pretty good baseball for the next few years, grow as a young team, and maybe a year or two from now, then you make some deals.
Yeah, right now Colorado's 2 games out of the final wild card spot. Arizona's a half game out. San Francisco's 4 out. So I still think Arizona's going to be the team most likely to make it to the playoffs over either Colorado or San Francisco. I had Arizona at 25-1 as one of my future picks when we did the first show this season. I didn't get a good price with the Nationals at 8-1. I got the Dodgers at 6-1. They're now 8-1. But I had the Diamondbacks at 25-1 when the season started as my third pick. I'm still liking the value there. They're currently around 20-1. And I think that's the other team to watch in the National League West. I think it'll be the Dodgers and the D-backs. I'm not a big believer in Colorado or San Francisco. San Francisco's actually overachieved so far this season. They probably have better pitching than Colorado. But I just don't think either one of those teams have enough consistency, especially offensively.
And Milwaukee, the 6-game losing streak to happen just before the All-Star break is going to have everybody in Milwaukee panicking for the next week and wondering exactly what it is that they're going to be able to do now. Is it over already? Will the Cubs run away from this division again? I don't know, but I tell you what, it's good that in a way, it's actually good that Milwaukee's stumbling a little bit right now, because I'd rather them, if I'm a Milwaukee fan, I'd rather them stumble now than after the deadline that I've already mortgaged the future. See what this team does all the way through to the deadline, and if it looks like they've got a shot and they're improving a little bit in the next couple of weeks, then okay, maybe make a deal. And of course, make sure you have a player who's going to be around for a few years, no rentals. But if they continue to slide by the deadline, then I'm sorry, I'm not making any moves again for a second straight year.
Yeah, they've lost 6 straight. The Cubs have won 3 in a row, yet Milwaukee's only 2.5 games behind the Cubs, so it could be a lot worse. If you're going to have a 6-game losing streak, I think this is the ideal time to do it, not only because it's midseason, but because you have the All-Star break now. I always use this handicapping factor with the NBA with the extended All-Star break. I feel like it's kind of the great momentum equalizer, and I look at the same thing in the NFL in bye weeks. It hurts teams that are hot. It helps teams that are struggling. So I think the mini bye week here is coming at the perfect time for the Brewers. I still think they're a legitimate playoff contender. I do think Chicago will win this division. That's one of the reasons I really liked them on the last show when we got that extra value with them at 15-1, because they were not winning the division yet. I do think Chicago pulls away here, but I think Milwaukee and Arizona are probably the 2 wild card teams. You got to figure Atlanta's going to fade at some point, and Philly is likely to fade as well. So I think of those 4 teams, Philly, Atlanta, Milwaukee, Arizona, I just feel more confident with Milwaukee and Arizona being consistent through September.
Who do you give a better shot in the postseason to make a deal at the deadline, Philly or Atlanta?
My gut says Philly, but I'm not sure there's a huge difference. I just feel like Philly's, willing to maybe spend a little bit more money. They just, even though both of these teams have struggled in recent years, I just feel like Philly's maybe thought they'd be a little closer this year than Atlanta. Although, we talked about in the first show, Atlanta was quietly picking things up at the end of last season. And I think all 3 of us mentioned in the opening show this spring that, Atlanta could be a bit of a surprise team. I don't think any of us thought they'd, be 5 games ahead of the Nationals at the All-Star break. But I think talent-wise, Atlanta's probably a more talented team. And for that reason, I think Philly might be a little more desperate to make a move, where Atlanta might be taking more of a long-term approach and trying to keep that team together now for several seasons to come.
All right, American League and Boston Yankees. So this I still believe is going to go down to the wire, because the Yankees have more to trade away and make a blockbuster move than the Red Sox, and they will. Now, and we know that Cashman will make sure he gets a player that'll be around for a while, too, because he's too smart. He's not going to go back to doing the rental thing again. But he'll make a move. Exactly what that move is, who knows? There's all the talk about Machado, which there's mixed feelings there. I don't think it makes any sense either. They need a starting pitcher more than anything, and if they're going to get an offensive player, they need somebody that can hit from the left side. And that's why, hey, if it's me, again, it's not going to happen, but if it's me, I'm Mike Rizzo, I'll go to Yankees. I say, hey, you want Bryce Harper? You want a left-handed bat? Go ahead. I'll give you Bryce Harper. I'm sure you could re-sign him. If you got it for 4 months, I'm sure he'd come back and sign with you guys. He loves you guys. Give me Sonny Gray. Give me Sonny Gray and a prospect. And if I'm the Nationals, I actually would be happy with that if I knew Harper wasn't coming back. But again, that ain't going to happen. I still think the Yankees, though, will go out and get themselves a pitcher.
Oh, yeah, I'd have to get a lot more than Sonny Gray and anybody for Bryce Harper. But I do agree with trying to trade him. But I guess if you don't think you're going to sign him, then you get whatever you can. But I would hopefully think they could re-sign him and they try to get maybe 2 good players for one. Because I'm always, with the injuries as we're talking about with Washington, you're always better off having 2 good players versus a superstar. Because if one guy goes down, you're done. If you have 2 of them, you have a 50-50 shot of one of them staying healthy still. So, on a side note, I would have no problem trading Bryce Harper, but I'd have to get some all-star quality for him. It will be interesting to see what happens. I doubt that'll happen. I think also from a PR perspective, like you mentioned, Greg, it's very difficult for the Nationals to justify that. The risk-reward for them just isn't that good. Boston and New York have been the 2 teams to beat in this American League since we started doing shows in the spring. As I keep saying, though, it's very tricky from a futures perspective because one of them is guaranteed to have to be in the one-and-done wild-card play-in game.
Yep.
It does look like it'll most likely be the Yankees now. 2 shows back, I took them at 9-1. Still good value because they're at 5-1 now. But it does look like Boston will win this division. I think the biggest news, though, is the fact that Houston has caught up. They were not even – I don't think they were even winning the division last month when we did the June 6th show. Now they're almost, tied for the best record in Major League Baseball. So it looks like Houston and Boston are going to have a little bit of an easier path. The one team I got wrong, though, is I had Cleveland at 9-1 a few shows back. Now they're 14-1. Cleveland's had some real bullpen issues, and I mentioned this in my power ratings article this week at Covers.com. Cleveland has been dropping in my rankings just because of the bullpen problems, and I currently have them down now this week all the way down to 11th. They went from 9th to 11th. Their bullpen is now 5-16 on the season with 11 blown saves. And that is something that's very concerning for a team that I thought had a really nice path to the World Series this year just because they're such an easy division they're in.
Yeah, look, with Miller out, they got no shot. So Miller has to come back, and as long as Miller comes back and it looks like he could be somewhat the pitcher he knows he can be, and they can go out and get themselves another reliever or two, they got a shot because they have such a good starting rotation. And I think they have enough offense, so it's going to be up to that bullpen. The bullpen is what almost had them winning a world championship a couple of years ago and how good they were in the regular season. So, yeah, I mean, that's what it's going to be. I mean, that's their formula is that bullpen, but it starts with getting Miller healthy. Which team do you like as far as a team outside the top? Boston, New York, Cleveland, Houston. Because Paxton's out. King Felix is out. They're starting to slide. I mean, Oakland is a nice story, but they're not going anywhere in the postseason, even if they make it somehow. I don't know if I'm willing to give up on the Angels just yet. I'm actually shocked that they're like 1,000-1 or something like that to win the World Championship. I mean, come on, teams can get hot in the second half. What's up with that? And Minnesota, maybe they get Santana back. Maybe they go on a little bit of a run because, again, as we both talked about with Cleveland, I mean, it's not like they're playing great baseball. But getting to the postseason for teams like Minnesota and Oakland or Anaheim is one thing, but winning a World Championship, completely different.
Yeah, I think the problem in the American League is it's basically all these teams are playing for one wild card spot because the Yankees and Red Sox have basically locked up the division and a wild card. Yankees are currently 8 games ahead of Oakland for the wild card cutoff. Seattle's 3 games up on Oakland. So Anaheim right now is 9 back for just the second wild card spot. So I think Oakland is probably the best play just to make the postseason. I wish Seattle didn't have so many injuries right now because they're a phony team, and I wrote about it again in my power ranking.
Who's that?
They're 19 games above 500. But they have a negative 2-run differential on the season.
Wow.
I've never seen anything like this. If you look at their expected win-loss record, based on runs scored, runs allowed, it's a very simple equation, but it's effective. They should be 48-49 instead of 58-39.
Is that because of their pitching?
Oakland, meanwhile, should be. Yeah, and I mean that's the thing. And so with some of the injuries now, you really have to be concerned because they're not a great offensive team. Oakland's 13 games up. They should be about 5 games up. So both teams are definitely not as good as their records. But I think Oakland has more upside if I had to take a flyer with somebody just for that reason.
All right. Are you going to add any future teams today?
Yeah, just for the fun, I don't think there's a lot of room to add any of the top teams. I've got most of them at good prices. A couple of them, like the Nationals and Indians, I'm a few points lower, as I mentioned. But Seattle at 18-1, Oakland at 50-1. I think both teams are overrated. But, if you're going to take a value play, take a small little flyer on Oakland at 50-1 because I think they do have a chance of making the postseason. And then you, of course, would hedge out right away probably before that wild card game against the Yankees would so likely lose.
All right. So you're just going to take one team, Oakland, 50-1.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of the good teams locked up. I've got the Yankees and Indians locked up. I think they both make the postseason. I think Houston and Boston make it. And I think Oakland makes it. So,
okay.
I've got with Oakland out of here, I've got 3 of the 5 teams. Unfortunately, Boston and Houston are each at 4-1. There's just, no value to add those, even though I like both of those teams a lot.
Yeah, the only thing, again, let's remind everybody that once we get to the postseason, then, because right now we're locked in $100 per bet. So once we get to, per future wager. So once we get to the postseason, we are capable of spending as much as we want. So that's something to keep in mind, too. And we'll continue to go over all of our future wagers through the end of the regular season. And we'll be on, of course, more once we get closer to the playoff race in the next month or so. Steve, I appreciate it. Best of luck. And by the way, your weekly rankings for Covers.com for baseball, when's that come out?
Yeah, every Monday to Tuesday. I usually publish them on Monday. I've got the new All-Star Break rankings up there right now at Covers.com. Just click on MLB and then Power Rankings.
Thanks a lot, Steve. We'll talk to you again next month.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, that's Steve Merrill with Covers.com. And once again, you can check out Covers Experts with that promo code. It's actually experts.covers.com. Prime 50, Prime 50, 50% off any purchase. You don't have to just use it for baseball, by the way. Let me go through Steve's official futures. So he's throwing them at you. But Cubs 15-1, and again, all of these are times 100. So he's got 100 and he's got 150 on 1500 on the Cubs. He's got 900 on the Yankees. He has 900 on Cleveland. He has $7,000 on Atlanta. 600 on the Dodgers, 800 on Washington, and 2,500 on Arizona. That's and now 5,000 on Oakland, and an investment total of 800. All right, Scott Zolatoro is going to join me in a few minutes. He's got the Cubs, 1,500 on the Cubs. No, actually, excuse me, he's got 2,300 on the Cubs because he took the Cubs twice. 2,300 on the Cubs, 2,500 on Milwaukee. $7,000 on Atlanta, 8,000. Wait a second, 800 on Washington. Getting confused, and we don't even want to talk about the teams that he no longer has money on. But he's got 600 invested, and again, he's got the Cubs, Milwaukee, Atlanta, and Washington. I have 800 on Washington. 12. Actually, I have more than that. I've done them twice. So I have 2,400 on Washington. And let's see, who else do I have? I've got Cleveland, 1,900. Yankees, 900. Dodgers, 2,200. Arizona, 2,500. I think that's everybody. 1,000 invested. All right. So anyway, let's bring Scott in. Scott, did you go to any Baltimore games lately?
I have been to, believe it or not, I've been to 12 this year.
Lately?
I have been to 2 in the last month and a half.
Oh, and for what reason?
Oh, you're going to make me say it, huh?
Sure. I mean, did you go there to work, or did you go there for the visiting team?
No, I went there because you never knew when the last day we were going to see Manuel Machado.
Oh, okay.
The greatest Oriole since Brooks Robinson and Jim Palmer.
And where's he going?
More skilled than Cal Ripken is what I was getting at there. I thought.
All right, fine. Where's he going?
I thought you were going to question me, but I guess you weren't. Where is he going? Oh man. Hopefully not New York.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I mean, they've got the best. If I'm Baltimore, I know people are talking about why there's no way Baltimore is going to trade in their division. Well, if the Yankees have the best prospects and you're going to get the best value for them, and you're like 3 years from competing with the Yankees, then
that's fine.
But yes, I'm going to trade with the Yankees. Of course I am. I mean, that's just silly.
Yes, that's fine. Here's the difference between what I've seen about it and and what I'm okay with. So one of the things that one of the big Yankees reporters tweeted this past week said the Orioles trade Machado and Britton, and in return get Domingo Germán, Clint Frazier, and Brandon Drury.
Yeah,
and that
good night.
Is a massive no.
Andujar.
And it has to be Andujar. I've said this for weeks. If it's going to be the Yankees, it's got to be Andujar and Torreyes.
There you go. That'll do it. Sure.
And maybe still Domingo Germán, but not Clint Frazier and Brandon Drury.
No, that is dumb. Who's doing that? Yankee fans?
This is one of the Yankees' top beat reporters.
Yeah, okay. Well,
tweeted this 5 days ago, and he asked Yankees fans if you would make the deal, yes or no. Oh, okay. So you're going to get a top 5 closer in baseball, even though he's struggling this year, and you're going to get Manny Machado, is the best shortstop in baseball, and it's not even close.
There's no way, if you're Duquette, you can trade Britton to the Yankees with Machado unless you are getting. Look, the players, the compensation you just talked about, I want that for Machado. I'm not throwing in Britton for those guys. I'm going to give you Machado. You'll give me those players. Then I'm taking Britton and I'm trading him to the Astros, and I'm getting more prospects.
No, I don't even want that for Machado alone. Any Machado deal has to.
No, I'm not talking about the crap stuff. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Don't even.
Yeah.
We're not talking about that anymore. That guy should be fired. I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about. There's no
the
way
Yankees
when
report,
you can get Andujar and you can get a couple other top prospects for Machado straight up. Then I'm taking Britton and I'm trading him to Houston. I'm getting 2 or 3 of their top prospects.
Or Seattle, who's looking for a setup man in front of the best closer in baseball, Edwin Diaz, right now.
Yeah,
so.
if Seattle, I mean, I doubt Seattle's got anything close to what Houston can give you. So, I mean, Seattle doesn't have prospects. I mean, DePoto trades everybody. So, I mean, he's got a couple good prospects, but, he doesn't have what the Astros have. So, anyway, now, whether Duquette will do that or not, that's the big question. And who else should be traded from Baltimore, though? I mean, everybody.
Well, Adam Jones is going to go. Brad Brock's going to go. Givens might go. Essentially, right now, the Orioles are I'm looking at 4 players that the Orioles are going to keep to attempt to build around, and even people are. I've been reading that even these 4 players are up for debate in some respect too. And those 4 players are Gosman, who we're still not giving up hope on, Bundy, who is hopefully the ace of the future for this baseball team, and then. Well, you can't trade Chris Davis because nobody wants that contract, even though we want to trade him as badly as humanly possible. And Jonathan Scope.
You see, what you could do with Davis is you throw Davis into the Britton deal, and you say, you get a prospect. You instead of a double prospect, you get a single prospect. And I'm just talking about one guy. You go ahead and you tell them to pay this contract. He's off of your books, and then use that money for next year.
If somehow we were able to unload that contract, that opens up the talk to actually re-sign Manny Machado in the offseason.
But we know that they will. Well, there you go. Unless if you think Baltimore's smart enough to do that,
that's $167 million that we're paying.
Yeah, sure.
Chris Davis to hit 160.
Well, I mean, if you think Duquette, see, that's the problem is I don't have trust. That because they don't make trades. Your organization does not make trades. Yeah. So I don't know how I would even feel anywhere near confident that they're going to be able to swing all these deals by the deadline and they're going to be good deals.
No. Well, here's the thing: is Manny Machado he has played his next to last game in a Baltimore Oriole jersey. He will wear a Baltimore Oriole jersey tomorrow night in D.C. at the All-Star game. And then I expect Wednesday or Thursday he is gone.
Okay.
Because here's the thing: is any team that wants him now.
True.
They don't want to wait another half a month for him. They want him now.
Who do you think has the other chance to get? You think Philadelphia?
I think Philadelphia actually is a pretty good spot for him too, and I think that it would be. I think he would be 100% all for that.
Do they have somebody you want?
Well, that's the question. They have some high prospects, but the question is are these high prospects performing the way they should? And in most cases with the Phillies, they are not. But they have guys who have a lot of potential that, you can look at Sixto Sanchez, real top guy. I don't see the Orioles getting him. I believe he's the top 5 pitching prospect in baseball right now. I don't see them getting him. But then can they get Mickey Moniak? Do they want Mickey Moniak, who's still a big bust in the minors? Do they want Adam Hazley, who has been, much better guy, but still not playing as well as you would expect? That's the thing with the Phillies. They have a lot of guys who are on a lot of people's radar, but I don't think you're getting Sanchez. You might be able to swing getting Medina, but even he hasn't been as great, pitching with a close to 5 ERA in high A ball.
Is there a sleeper team? There's always the sleeper team that nobody talks
Milwaukee.
about.
Well, Milwaukee is the team that people are starting to talk about that I've been thinking about for a couple of weeks now. Milwaukee's got some guys. They got this, Keston Hura, who is another infielder who I believe he came over from either one of the Koreas. He played in the NCAA, but he's a really, really good baseball player. He's just had some injury issues. But he's playing well this year. Otherwise, he would have been higher up than he is. He's just got called up to AA a little while ago. And they also got another righty, Corbin Burns. So a couple of players there. But again, no team really, in my opinion, has. I mean, again, it might be somewhat biased. It might be that Machado is just playing his best baseball of his career, and he's 3 years in a row been playing this good. I don't think anybody is going to really give the Orioles exactly what they want for them.
Well, I think part of that, though, to tell you the truth, is also because
it's the organization.
Yes, let's go ahead and hey, look at this guy. Look at this guy's tweet. Maybe Baltimore really does believe. You know what I'm saying? I mean, maybe maybe the Yankees fed the tweet on purpose. Seriously,
well, the Yankees.
Maybe they
possible.
did. Because to find out whether or not, how will they react? What kind of reaction will we get if we throw this garbage package out there? Will this be something we can actually get away with?
Right. I would like, if I had my way, it would be probably you would get Justice Sheffield and Andujar for Machado, and that's fine. I'll take those two guys for Machado, and I will call it a deal. And
sure.
And if you throw in a Glaber, or excuse me, a Torreyes, a Ronald Torreyes, then I will give you Zach Britton as well. So I will give you Zach Britton and Machado for your top pitching prospect, who is a lefty and really good, the thing the Orioles need the most. Andujar, who is the guy who comes in and replaces Machado, so which would mean they would put Beckham back at short, Machado at third, and then you get another infield prospect as well.
All right. Any other deals that are going to go down that are going to be, considered the big ones? Let's throw out, and I was talking, of course, I threw out the whole Bryce Harper thing because it's not going to happen because Mike Rizzo doesn't make those deals. He doesn't have the pedigree of the top GMs in all of sports. And I wish he did. He's a good GM, but he's not a great GM, and that's what holds him back. I talked about this a couple of years ago with the whole Matt Williams thing at the All-Star break when there was injuries, and it was so obvious that Matt Williams was in over his head, and then they throw in the injuries, compound it, and there was no way this team was going to do anything. And for 3 months, he could have made a deal. He could have fired Williams. He could have done it like St. Louis did. They let the minor league guy go, and they had a minor league bench boss or somebody that they could go ahead and replace him with. Did they do that? No, because Rizzo doesn't make those types of moves. So if it was a different GM, I think they'd actually entertain it. And the only reason I'm even saying this is if Rizzo only knows what kind of negotiating situation he's got going on. Like if he doesn't think Harper's coming back, then you have to consider it based on what's going on right now. But yeah, and plus it would also depend on what you'd get in return. You're not going to just trade him to trade him. But again, yeah, it's Mike Rizzo, so I'm just going to forget about that.
So here's a couple of other big names that I think will get traded. So who has been the biggest name that's been traded several times at the deadline? And this poor guy's had to move mid-season so many times. Cole Hamels, again, is probably going to be traded. He's one of the top, he's a lefty. He's one of the top starting arms that's on the market right now.
Did he have like a bad relationship with the Phillies when he left? Because I don't understand why I'm not hearing that. Why wouldn't him going back to Philly make sense unless there was bad blood there?
I've never heard that either. It's one of those things it might be behind closed doors, but that makes so much sense to me because what is the one thing that the Phillies have 3 really strong starting pitchers right now, and the other 2, they can give you something decent on a night, but they're not going to give you, the stuff that that their 3 strong arms. And I'm saying their 3 strong arms have been, fantastic this year. And that's Pivetta, Arrieta, and Nola. Those guys have really been, especially Nola. This guy has, he's got Cy Young written on him, if not this year, then in his future. And Arrieta has been, outstanding for them as well. If he would get more run support, he would, his numbers would have been higher, and he could have possibly been an all-star.
Where else do you think? See, again, I look at Hamels, and I think he'd still be also a very good fit for Washington because the Nationals need a starting pitcher, period, end of story. I've said this since the beginning of the season, as you know. I mean, the whole Gio Gonzalez thing is ridiculous. Tanner Roark is pitching like an idiot. Hellickson, thankfully, is doing well.
He's also looking like an idiot too. Don't forget about that.
Yeah, I don't know what he's doing.
Facial hair.
Yeah, yeah. So they got to get another starting pitcher in there. The question is what would they give up for Hamels? And again, you could, to me, whatever the Nats are going to trade should and probably would start with Michael Taylor. You trade Taylor, you don't have enough room for him. Even if Harper leaves, you don't have room for Taylor because you have Eaton, you've got Soto, and then you're going to get Robles. So you don't have any room for Michael Taylor anyway. So you might as well just trade him now. Because you're not going to trade Robles, you're not going to trade, and I don't think they're going to trade Keyboom. Because he's their only top infielder prospect right now. That's a year or two away, and with Murphy possibly going, Keyboom could wind up potentially as the Nats second baseman by the end of next year. So I don't think they could trade Keyboom, but they have enough prospects. They've got Michael Taylor. They've got a couple other pieces. I don't know what else that they need to do. They don't have to do anything with their bullpen. There really isn't anything to do with their offense unless they want to bring in another catcher like Wilson Ramos. I don't think they're going to make the deal with the Florida Marlins because of the fact the Marlins want too much. So I think the Nationals, Cole Hamels makes sense because of the division and so forth. Where else do you think Hamels would fit?
Milwaukee, and just another team that has that has prospects that they could give up, and also has what I'd like to call extremely strong starters. They have Junior Guerra has been their best one. Other than that, everybody is in the high threes, in the fours, so they could totally use him. Zach Davies is officially lost, everything that he ever had, and I think Milwaukee would make sense. A lefty would be, great there as well. Milwaukee is another team, that's going to be surging. I think they're going to be a big team come this All-Star break.
If I was thinking about what would make more sense for me, would be Yankees, Nationals, or any team in the National League West.
So I don't think the Yankees are thinking about Cole Hamels. I saw something related them to Gibson from Minnesota, which would be an interesting thing. And remember, Minnesota is just one of these teams that we talked about to start the season as another team that could possibly make the playoffs. But the only reason that they're even remotely even have a chance to make the playoffs at this point is because the Indians are just playing their worst baseball in quite some time.
Yeah.
But you can't imagine that's going to stick around.
No.
So I think Minnesota is going to consider themselves sellers because they know that there's too many teams like Seattle, even Oakland, the Angels, the Yankees, and the Red Sox. There's too many teams that are in the mix for this wild card that it doesn't make sense for the Minnesota Twins to go in for it this year because they did last year.
Yeah.
And it worked out. They made the playoffs. It was a good story and everything, but I just don't think that this year is the year for them, especially since they play in the worst division in baseball and they're still 6 games below 500.
Well, they were smart when they traded Kinsler, and they didn't go crazy, and they still made the playoffs. So I think that's where they can. Now Santana is interesting because isn't he supposed to be back soon? Is it possible for him to be back before the deadline? Is that even possible? Because nobody's going to trade for Santana unless he comes back before the deadline and makes a starter too.
Well, I'm not sure it's possible for him to be back before the July 31st deadline. But then don't forget about that August 15th deadline, that weird waiver deadline that only baseball has that he could be, around for.
That's true. So with Hamels, my point with the Yankees and also Washington, and I'd throw in the Dodgers, Arizona, I'm not going to even tell you the truth. I'm not going to throw in Colorado or San Francisco. Colorado because they're just not going to trade for a 35-year-old pitcher. And San Francisco, they don't have any prospects. So nor should they trade anybody for another old guy. But the Dodgers and Arizona would make sense to bring in another starting pitcher because they both have prospects, especially the Dodgers. It would not surprise me to see the Dodgers go after Cole Hamels. Put him in there, another lefty, too. Imagine the Dodgers bring in Cole Hamels to go along with Kershaw and so forth. Why wouldn't the Dodgers? See, the Dodgers, once again, I mean, somebody needs to do something about it. Maybe they need to hire a new training staff because how many injuries can one organization have over the last few years? Unless, again, a lot of these injuries when they stash these guys in the DL is just nonsense, for some of these guys, and they're just resting them. Who knows? But the Dodgers are in first place again. They've got so much money. They've got so many prospects. They've got to make a deal somewhere.
And remember, I mean, when you say they're in first place, they are hanging on for dear life in first place, about a half a game in first place. I think the Dodgers also should have mentioned them earlier in the Manny Machado talks, too, because, the Orioles would gladly take Verdugo off their hands if they allowed them to. And a thing like Manny Machado is he's one of these players. You know how we talk about deadline guys like Cole Hamels? Cole Hamels is a huge name. But Cole Hamels does not get you a team's number one or number two prospect in return.
No.
Manny Machado does.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's the reason why I want him on my team because I know I don't have to give up a top prospect for Cole Hamels. So, yeah, I mean, Arizona – so the thing with the Dodgers, though, with Machado, I don't know. I mean, this isn't the Dodgers' MO, though, to trade for a player that may only be there because they have Seager coming back. I mean
but if they get to win a World Series this year,
I know.
They tasted it, and they were so close last year. Look at what they're doing right now at shortstop. It's ugly between Logan Forsythe and Chase Utley.
We'll get another one.
It is.
Get somebody a lot less expensive. Maybe Troy Tulowitzki. Is he still playing? I mean, get somebody that you don't have to pay an arm and a leg for that would probably only be a rental. That's why I think it makes more sense for teams like the Phillies or the Yankees because, because the Yankees, if Machado goes to the Yankees are definitely going to re-sign him. I mean, and if the Phillies goes there, same thing. So I don't know whether or not, I don't know if this has been talked about. Has it been talked about on whether or not Baltimore would allow the teams that they would be trading with to talk to Machado before the deal?
To
his agent.
Teams have already probably talked to Machado's agent.
Okay.
If I had to guess.
Okay.
If I had to guess.
All right.
It's because it's been a full season thing. It's been the most known thing in baseball that this is Manny Machado's last year in Baltimore. It doesn't matter what else is happening with the Orioles. This is it. It's not. I mean, that's why Orioles fans. That's why they're somehow still getting 25,000, 30,000 fans at games against the Rangers because it's the last time that you're going to see, one of the greatest Orioles ever play in an Orioles jersey. And so there's just no way, whether they're talking to him directly or talking to the agent or talking to the agent's friend or whatever it is. These teams have been talking to him, because, again, they want to get a sense of, hey, if we're the Dodgers or if we're the Cleveland Indians and we want to trade for you, are you going to give us a long-term deal after? What's it going to take?
Now, where do you think Adam Jones is going?
Adam Jones is going to a contender for sure because this is a guy who, has given his heart and soul to Baltimore. And
what kind of rumors have you heard?
He just the rumor. Look, it's hard to find rumors about other players when you have Manny Machado rumors swirling around. But Adam Jones, I heard also. Oh, actually, I heard Atlanta for Adam Jones, and which would reunite him with Nick Markakis, who was for a long time his best friend on the Orioles. It was 2110 Utah Street is what that people were calling that, and that would make sense. Unfortunately, I heard the Red Sox too, just because of some banged up guys out in the outfield. But I don't think the Orioles are going to trade him to the Red Sox. I also don't think he wants to go to the Red Sox. Unlike Machado, who's going to go wherever it takes, he can make the most amount of money. I think Jones is in the later part of his career. He doesn't want to go to a place where he's heard racial slurs.
What
So,
kind of contract does Jones have?
I believe it's up after this season.
So he's a free agent next year.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that also, I guess, limits what. See, this is just typical Baltimore. Let's not trade these guys last year when you would have had so much more value for them.
Mm-hmm.
Let's trade them when the value goes down this year at the deadline, when teams may feel that they're only going to get Machado and Jones for 3 months.
Also, Adam Jones is on a $17 million contract this year. So that's a lot of dough to somebody to have to eat for a half a season.
Well, yeah, well, it's whatever, $7 million. So
sure.
All right, and anybody else? Any other big names floating around that you have heard yourself, either pitchers or
for the Orioles or in baseball?
No, in baseball.
There's still a few more. Let's see.
I mean, are there any other relievers besides Britton out there?
Well, I was hearing Brad Hand.
Again?
And this would be interesting. Brad Hand, yeah, I know. Again, I was hearing Brad Hand to the Cubs, which actually would make a lot of sense because the Cubs bullpen has been beat the hell up. I mean, you got a guy, Brandon Morrow, who has been an outstanding closer this year, injures himself putting his pants on.
Yeah, well, that's what we talked about. We talked about him being able to stay healthy. So, but haven't the Padres, I mean, so do you think that they're going to come down on their asking price?
I don't see the Padres doing that because the Padres have slightly, underratedly have been like the Orioles trying to trade. They've been really way over asking for players, but I think the Cubs have enough in the the prospect world to get something for them and not give up, their whole world. First of all, the Cubs have 6 of their top 7 prospects are starting pitchers. So that always helps yourself.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so that is a really appetizing thing. And the other one's a shortstop. And if you could find an infielder, a spot in the infield where the Cubs need somebody, you let me know because they already have enough rotation problems as it is.
How about with the team itself? Don't they have like their own Michael Taylor or something, like a player on their roster that they could also throw into a deal?
Well, yes and no. I don't think they're going to give up Ian Happ, who is not playing every day. I also don't think they're going to give up Albert Almora, who is on the DL currently. But those would be the 2 guys that are both extremely talented players that, again, just happen to split time because where do you put all these players? They get so many players. Chris Bryant has been playing right field because David Bodie, who has been the new guy who's been called up, has been an unbelievable third baseman, and he's also hitting .315 in his 42 at bats. So he's going to start playing pretty much every day, and so Chris Bryant's going to play right field, which means Jason Hayward, who's playing his best baseball in years, is gonna be playing center field, and then left field rotates again between Zobrist, Schwarber, Happ, and then who knows when Almora comes back.
All right.
I guess what I'm saying is yes, they do have one of those 2 guys.
What about Toronto? Toronto, again, they have a bunch of older players. I mean, the J.A. Happ rumors are the biggest rumors. So I think
2 of the 3 between Happ, Fulmer from Detroit, and then Cole Hamels, 2 of those 3 will probably get moved.
All right.
If I had to guess, Fulmer is he's one of the first of all the only righty in that bunch. J Happ, I believe I've seen the Nationals, and I saw this from a Nats beat writing report, and it was again going back to what you saying that Roark and Gio Gonzalez really haven't stepped up, and especially since Strasburg went to the DL. So I think that, and a lefty as well. I mean, if you could get either Happ or Hamels to the Nats, just put Gio in the bullpen and be done with them. I think you'd be happy.
Well, they won't do that though. I mean, at the playoffs, that's what you do. But, yeah, they wouldn't do that in the regular season. What about, I mean, by the way, Clippard's having a good season, so he's probably a guy that definitely gets traded somewhere. Somebody that could be a seventh-inning guy for some team. But what else as far as Toronto? Because, again, they've got some older players. I mean, it's been a what's their how are things going with some of their guys? I mean, who's actually worth something with Toronto?
Solarte.
Solarte's a definite. Yeah, he's having a career.
Solarte,
Well, yeah,
he's a switch hitter, and he can play 4 or 5 different positions. He can play anywhere in the infield. His average isn't where you want it to be, but his power numbers are up compared to his career numbers. I think he makes sense as somebody who could go. Randall Grichuk is starting to pick it up. He struggled earlier in the season, but he's starting to pick it up a bit. He could find his way on somewhere else. But I mean, other guys that you would think you would hear their names, prepared to get called on trading. I mean, some of these guys, like how big of a disappointment has Marcus Stroman been this year? He hasn't even been talked about at all because he's just pitching in the 6s in ERAs. He's got Chris Tillman type numbers. So another relief pitcher that they could, possibly deal is John Axford, a guy who can eat up a bunch of innings. He's a good strikeout pitcher. Again, his numbers are higher than you would hope. But Clippard, like you said, for sure has been outstanding this year, and a guy who could get dealt. So basically, anybody on Toronto is available.
What about Jordan Zimmerman finally pitching well for Detroit? You think they would trade him now?
No. I think he's a project that they would like to continue to work on. I don't think that he has the value. Also,
he's kind of old too. He's getting up there in age.
He's 32 years old. I don't think he has the value that he once had.
I'll bring him back.
He's pitching well.
Bring him back to the Nats.
You'll bring him back.
Definitely. We'll give Detroit.
Hey, he was an all-star. He was an all-star for you.
He was He was a great pitcher for the Nats. As soon as they got rid of him,
problem is with him is he's also on a $24 million deal right now.
Yeah, that's true. The Nats can't really afford a whole lot. But then again, that's why you're gonna got to make sure that you trade some of these other. You have to make some moves. And again, I think it all depends too. I mean. If the guy's contract is up at the end of the year, it's a lot easier for teams like the Nationals who are already, over whatever it is. What do they have? The tax in baseball. If you go over a certain number, I forget exactly what it is.
So it's called the luxury tax.
Oh, they call it the luxury tax in baseball, just like in basketball. Isn't that what they have in basketball too? Right, the luxury tax.
Similar, yeah.
So
you pay a fine if you go over.
Yeah, so the Nats I think are already over that a little bit. But again, if you're getting a player that has a contract running out this year, or again, that you're going to get rid of players next year like the Nats are, it's not a big deal. All right, let's see. Anybody else? Is that it? And again, no other, no like superstar names though.
No, I mean.
Okay.
So again, everybody's eyes are on Manny Machado. We will see what happens with him. I mean, once he gets Manny Machado, basically every team in baseball is waiting to see what happens with the Machado trade so they could judge other trades off of what the Orioles get back from Machado, if that makes sense.
Well, sure. Well, it would be a good idea to make, like you said, why not make it now? I mean, definitely.
Well, I was reading earlier today that he could be a Philly on Wednesday. And again, I truly 100% that he will be traded by Wednesday or Thursday. Even Buck Showalter in his press conference yesterday said, we're all old enough to realize what's going on,
Yeah, sure. Well, make the move. You've waited long enough. You don't have to wait until July 31st and milk it all the way.
No team, for the teams that want Machado, and there's plenty of them, there's at least 4 or 5 of them that are in this bidding war for him right now. They want him, and they want him right now.
All right. As far as the playoff race goes, so who do you?
We got a good one. We got a good playoff race this year. I'm very, very excited at both the AL and the NL. There's several close ones interdivision wise, and the National League. What is going on in the National League? I mean, you're looking at these teams. that are struggling so much. Your Nationals, the Cubs, the Brewers, the Cardinals, even the Dodgers and Diamondbacks and the Rockies, they're all struggling so much that it's going to be so fun down the stretch. And I think there's going to be a lot of trades heading to the National League. Again, why wouldn't the Phillies want to get Manny Machado, give themselves an extra, 50 RBIs the second half of the season and try to boast themselves ahead?
Yeah, the Phillies, but that's why Machado makes sense for the Phillies, because Machado's a guy that the Phillies would want to bring in for long term,
Sure.
and they're not going to get into the rental game that much. Who do you think? See, I still think, even though Atlanta's a half game out now, I still, maybe
I like Atlanta.
Maybe because
like
of Machado
Atlanta.
that would change my mind, but yeah, I still think Atlanta's a better team than Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, if the Phillies get Machado, it'll be a different thing. But I really like Atlanta. I remember that Atlanta was my Diamondbacks pick from last season. I picked the Diamondbacks at like 125-1. This year I took Atlanta at 90-1 or something like that. And I still and you were like, you're crazy. They're not there yet. But Freddie Freeman is.
Well, they're
doing
not
the
there
damn
yet.
thing.
They're not winning the World Championship. Again, there ain't nothing wrong with taking 70 or 121 to 1 shots, and they make the playoffs. That's great, and it helps with your portfolio of future teams. It just gives you a better chance, and you can throw a little bit money there and there to make sure that you got all your bases covered. But come on, Atlanta's not winning the World Championship. It's just not going to happen.
I'll say right now, first things first, Atlanta's top 3 hitters go up against any team's top 3 hitters: Marquez, Freeman, Albies. Those 3 guys.
Yeah, but they have nobody right now that can close games for you that you're confident with. They don't have enough starting pitching.
So go get Brad Hand or Zach Britton.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know. See, I can't anticipate Atlanta is going to make. There's no way they built up all of this unless they're going to go out and get players that are going to be around for 3 or 4 years.
Sure.
And Britton, I don't think makes any sense for Atlanta because he hasn't been healthy. You can't trade prospects away for a guy that hasn't been healthy. You just can't do it. Not if you're Atlanta. That's why Machado makes sense for Philly.
Yeah, sure. And here's another thing about the Braves is Mike Farkelnevich, who has been unbelievable this year. If he could just get himself to go an extra inning in some of these starts, this would be a Cy Young candidate. The guy has a 2.6 ERA, but only goes about 5 1/3 innings each game. So he needs to find a way. He's also striking out close to 11 batters per 9. So he's got to figure out how to go a little bit longer into games. Anibal Sanchez has been a great story for them
and
as well.
that's going to end soon, by the way.
And so has Sean Newman.
By the way, that's going to end soon.
What, Sanchez?
Yeah. Anibal Sanchez will have a 6 ERA in the second half of the season. Book it.
It's not out of the question.
Yeah, that's why they have to get more pitching. But yeah, Newcomb is pitching well. That's what you're happy with because he's young.
And he's a lefty. Teheran isn't pitching terrible. He's actually getting more run support.
Yeah, he's been overrated for years now. But he's still. I mean, the problem with him is incredible number of walks. I mean, if he would just stop walking people, he's only given up 77 hits in 105 innings. I mean, that's really good. But he's walking too many people. He's walked. I think he's walked 50, 55, something like that. And he's also his strikeout numbers are down too. But that's why I really like Atlanta. I mean, put it this way, they've got 2 really good starting pitchers in Newcomb and Fontelnevich, and I mean these guys are really good. And probably, like you said, it's not going to continue for Anibal Sanchez. Brandon McCarthy, he's a joke. I can't believe that he is their a starting pitcher for them. So, but maybe it makes sense for Atlanta to go get Cole Hamels or one of those other guys. See, it's got to be somebody that it has time left. Somebody that's going to be around for a while. So that's the trick. And that's why teams like Philly and Atlanta, it's like we saw with Minnesota last year, see these teams that are rebuilding and find themselves a year ahead of schedule. It would be unwise to make deals unless they're going to be players that will be there for the long haul. And that's the thing with Atlanta that they don't have that Philly would have if they go out and make the Machado deal. But this is all still contingent on the Nationals staying a banged up team because Strasburg will be back after the break, right after the break. Zimmerman's going to be back right after the break, which means that Murphy, who's already been back, Eaton, who's already been back, Wieters, who's already – that means everybody's back on offense as it's significant, and starting pitching with Hellickson returning too. So that means that once they're out of the break and they start the series with the Braves this weekend, they could be as healthy as they've been in months.
The Adam Jones Braves.
And that's, that's a trade that you should make, because Adam Jones is a guy that you would want to re-sign. That's a guy that you bring back. You re-sign him to 3 or 4 years. You have the money to do it. You're telling me you've got this great friendship with Markakis. What a perfect opportunity. You bring him in. He's happy with Markakis. He goes, you know what? Okay, I'm happy. I got my buddy here. This is a nice place to live. I'll re-sign with you guys.
Exactly. And he also Instagrammed when the Orioles played in Atlanta how much he loved the new stadium and how much he would love to reunite 2110.
There you
which
go.
Is what they called him and Markakis. So I still like, at this moment, I like the Braves to win this division. To answer the question that you brought up, this whole thing, I think the Braves have.
So all things
of
being
talent.
equal right now, throw odds out the equation. You think Atlanta's going to win the division?
I think Atlanta wins the division. I think I think this is the closest division in baseball for the remainder of the season. I think that Atlanta, maybe a game and a half.
Now,
over the
is that
Nationals.
because though that you think that the Nats are going to be as banged up pretty much as they were in the first half? You just think it's just not their year. Guys will continue to get hurt, or do you think?
Also, I don't like that people are bringing up, do we trade Bryce Harper?
Well, that'll be over in 2 weeks, though.
Well, it'll be over, but it's still. I'm not saying he's not going to get traded. There's just no way, no how that he gets traded. But it's just another thing that divides. The media divides the clubhouse. I don't like that it's even been brought up, because if the Orioles were a 500 team and in the playoff race and the Machado talks were still going, then it would be a different story. But the Orioles are, close to 50 games below 500.
Well, this is possible. Again, I can't think that the way Harper's playing this season, the fact that his contract's finally up, to me, it's not a coincidence. It's got to be on his mind. It's distracting him. It's distracting the clubhouse a little bit. Look, it's not the reason they're where they're at right now. The injuries are why they're at right now. But he's been a part of it, because when you've got guys out and he's batting .220, that is the reason why the Nats are where they are.
And let's not forget that there have been players for the Nats that have severely stepped up. I mean, if anybody in their right mind thought that Mark Reynolds would be hitting over or close to 300
Matt Adams
with 10 home runs, Matt Adams, another guy. I mean, Juan Soto is considerably outperforming what people would have expected him to do right out of the gate. I mean, I'm not saying that he wasn't expected to be an outstanding player, but right out of the gate, nobody would have expected him to be hitting over 300. Andrew Stevenson, when he's called to action, gets the job done every once in a while.
See, the problem is, here's where their problems hit them, though, is for the whole month.
Is Zimmerman's injuries, Bryce Harper not hitting the ball.
Well, the biggest injury is Murphy.
Games.
The biggest injury is Murphy. And then, the other biggest injury was? Kendrick.
Oh, Strasburg. Oh, Kendrick.
Because when Murphy, with him out, you could have had Kendrick playing second base every day.
Sure.
So for the whole month of June, when they were that bad, I'm going to tell you what their 6-7-9 was. I mean, 7-8-9 was every day. William Defoe.
Oh, boy.
Pedro Severino batting 180. And the pitcher. And the 6 was Michael Taylor, batting 210.
Right.
Every single day, it was 6, 7, 8, 9 with Harper batting 210. That's what killed them. So, because with Murphy, even until recently, they've been playing him at first base a little bit because he hasn't been ready to play second, which means Defoe has to keep playing. And Matt Wieters isn't like some sort of gold star, catcher as it is anyway. So that's really what's hurting them, is that you throw Strasburg out of the rotation, you throw Hellickson out of the rotation. All of a sudden, that means you have to hit. And if you're not hitting because of all these issues, that's why I think it's ridiculous when these analysts and they talk about the Nats not playing well. And then they'll just, they are injured. But, but. The reason they're 5.5 games out is because they have injuries. Don't just throw it under the rug like it does. Oh, they're underperforming. Yeah, they're underperforming because they got the most games lost to injury in the entire league. I mean, come on. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's what we said at the beginning of the season. The Nats were going to run away with this division unless they were, had a rash of injuries. So anyway, I still think, though, right now, no odds because everybody's coming back. I've talked about being patient all season on this show, and I continue. There's way too many games to go that the Nats are still going to win this division. But if injuries continue to persist, then no. But as long as everybody comes back healthy and they don't have the injury issues that they had in the first half of the season, there is no doubt in my mind they're going to win this division.
Also, don't completely throw out the Braves have had some injuries too to Preston Tucker and Acuna. So those guys are also back and healthy as well. So I like the Braves lineup, like I said. And Dansby Swanson is playing his best baseball of his career. I like the Braves lineup, and if they have those three, if they get that third guy and that last outfielder.
But again, they need guys in the bullpen too, just like the Phillies.
Dangerous.
That's what the problem is with the Phillies.
Sure do.
The Phillies have got weak bullpen situation, and see when you have a weak bullpen. That means that you have to go out and make several deals in the bullpen. And then you got to go out and get Machado, or you got to go out and get Adam Jones. It's just too many deals for teams that are trying to rebuild.
But are you saying that the Nationals have a particularly strong bullpen themselves?
Of course they do. When everybody's healthy and you have Doolittle, Madsen, Kinsler, you went out and got Herrera. I mean,
Kelly, yeah.
So they're fine there. But again, with the pitching situation, when you took Hellickson and Strasburg out, you were going with Gio, Roark. You were taking AA pitchers and AAA pitchers were pitching for you every fifth day. But look, I'm not comparing Washington's injury situation or their team to Atlanta and Philly because I don't even think there is any comparison. Washington, I'm comparing to, say, the Cubs or the Dodgers still, because that's where they are at their level. Atlanta and Philly are rebuilding teams. Again, I just think that they shouldn't get suckered into, hey, we've got to make deals to bring in guys, rentals, or guys that maybe we wouldn't even think of getting because we have a shot to go to the postseason. For what? To go to the playoffs for 5 games and then you're out? It's for what? An extra 3 or 2 or 3 home, games where you can make a little bit of extra cash. I just don't, nor do I think either organization will do that. I don't think either organization is going to be stupid enough to think that they're going to mortgage the future for a playoff run.
Fair.
And look, if the Nationals were 15 games out or something, then I might consider it a little bit. But they don't even know if they're going to beat out the Nationals, let alone anything else. As far as Milwaukee, they've got a very difficult situation because now that they've lost 6 games in a row and they're 2.5 back for the first time all season, it's like, it's at least it's happened a few weeks earlier than last year. But you got to say to yourself, well, what do you do? I mean, and you mentioned a potential deal already with the Brewers, like Machado. But I gotta tell you, I think it's the same thing. I think with Milwaukee, knowing you're not going to probably win this division and you're going to have to be in a 1-game wild card scenario at best, I would only make trades that I knew that I was going to get players that are going to be around for years.
Well, and that's another interesting situation for them because you're looking at a team that, like you said, this is for this season at least. This is new territory for them. They also have as good of a top 3 hitters in baseball as most teams with Aguilar, who I couldn't believe had to get last voted into the All-Star game. How ridiculous is that? The dude has 70 RBIs and 300. And he was a last vote to get. Come on.
The whole All-Star thing is a joke.
Come on. Yelich, he's been banged up. Kane has been banged up. Those guys have missed 23 games combined. You're looking at Travis Shaw, who started the season on fire, and now he's hitting about 175 in his last 35 games, or whatever it is. Ryan Braun, he's a shell himself, has also missed a serious amount of games. So where do they go? I mean, they need hitting and badly. I mean, badly. So Machado makes so much sense there as well. But they also, like I mentioned earlier, they need pitching because they have about 2, maybe 3, what I would call quality starters. And Junior Guerra is he's 33 years old. So this is the best he's thrown in his career. and the team, when he just pitches, just doesn't get the run support. And another guy who's, got to, just slow down with the hits. He's not walking people, but he's allowing too many hits. They need help. I think they need help. I think the Cubs will run away with this division. And also, the Cubs, they're getting their injured players back. Chris Bryant missed about 15 games. He's back. And he's also not hitting nearly where you would expect he would. Javier Baez tearing the cover off the baseball. He's been, above and beyond outstanding. And like I said, Jason Hayward hitting 285, a guy who was hitting in the 215s, 220s, 230s in his first several seasons with the Cubs.
All right, so just quickly then, in the American League, Boston and the Yankees and Cleveland at this point would have to really have injury issues in the second half to lose this division. And Seattle now without Paxton and King Felix for a little while, that's going to hurt some of the momentum. Maybe that.
This is a tough situation for Seattle because the way the Athletics are playing right now is really scary if I'm a Mariners fan because we all know that top wild card spot is going to go to probably the Yankees and the Red Sox. Everyone loses that division, gets that top wild card spot. And then, like I mentioned earlier, the Angels, Athletics, and Mariners, I think the Angels are falling further and further away out of this thing. But the Athletics and Mariners are right in there for this. And it's going to be a big fight for the two of them. And right now, Oakland, with these young, no-name players, is just taking control, and I love it. This is so exciting for a baseball fan who just likes to watch random baseball games. If you had to guess what the top batting average, what the second best batting average on the Oakland A's is, what would you think it is?
The highest batting average?
I'll tell you, Jed Lowry's hitting 285. He's got the best. What is the second best batting average on a team that is 13 games above 500?
I mean, for Oakland, I don't know, 245?
It's 264. Steven Piscotty is hitting 264.
Well, that's why, first, part of this reason is I'm sure it has a lot to do with how bad some of these other teams are in Major League Baseball, that you get to, run all over them. And the other thing, we talked about this with Seattle, remember last month when they were doing so well. We were looking at their team, we're going, how is it possible? And I don't think they're going to hold up either. And the only way they do is if they continue to play bad teams like Oakland. So I don't know if how Oakland is going to do it. And Oakland's not going to make any trades. So
no,
I don't
Oakland
believe
doesn't have anybody to trade.
Yes.
Oakland's not going to make any trades. They have nobody to trade.
Yeah, so they're not going to do anything.
They're not going to trade any players to other contenders. Oakland is what Oakland is, and they're doing it with the bullpen. And if you don't like that, and as a Nats fan, you have got to be kicking yourself when you see Blake Trinan.
Oh no! But you trade and you no, a guy like Trinan, it's obvious. He gets traded back to the Nats. He'd choke again.
And he stinks again.
Yeah, I mean, so no, I don't want to. It's trust me, I don't. That's predictable.
You got Lou Trevino. You got Lou Trevino also pitching so good. You got Ryan Buchter pitching well. Oh man, I mean, you got some names here. And when you look at the guys,
can't Anaheim make a run or the Richards injury end any of their chances? Because
I mean, the Angels are just. I mean, they've had an unlucky season. I mean, the Richards thing has just been awful.
I mean, Heaney's pitching well for him. Skaggs has been incredible.
Shoemaker made one start.
Yeah, he's never healthy.
And he's never healthy.
It's
and
like a Met pitcher.
You have the most exciting, pitcher, the most exciting player in all of baseball, Ohtani, and they have to shelve him from pitching. I don't know if he'll pitch again this season. And he was pitching some lights out stuff. He was, getting better and better each start.
I would still put them in a category of top sleeper though, because they still have talent. They still have some decent starters left in the rotation.
They have so much more talent than Oakland or Seattle. They do. They just do. I mean, when you look at their lineup, they do. I mean, you have Andrelton Simmons. He's an all-star. You have Mike, who, again, is just, the greatest baseball player of my generation, and it's not even close. You got Ohtani, who's hitting again, and look what he does in his first game back. It's home run to dead center field. You got Justin Upton, who's just creaming the ball. Pujols, hey, Albert Pujols, old man Albert, 38 years old, has 16 homers and 50 RBIs. And then, the biggest disappointment for them, for sure, is Ian Kinsler, though. Only 26 RBIs, 11 home runs, and he's hitting down in the 220s.
Yeah, well, enough of those trades with old guys, and sooner or later they're going to fall off.
That's the big question is, do we consider them to be a trade-looking team? Because they're not making the playoffs, what this roster looks as it is.
No way. They don't have any talent to trade. There's just no way.
Then they're not making the playoffs. Then they're not making the playoffs.
Yeah, but again, look, you just talked about, which I agree, roster-wise, they're just as good or better than the Mariners or A's. Nothing has changed except the fact that they're underachieving. And yes, they have an injury here or there. But look at Seattle.
Hurt.
But look at Seattle.
Their pitchers are hurt.
Look at Seattle.
Yes,
Paxton's on the DL. Felix is on the DL. They have nobody else, so except their reliever. So when you're thinking, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying the Angels are going to do it. I'm just saying when you're thinking of sleeper teams that can make a run, why couldn't the Angels put together a second half where they're like 15 games over 500 or 18 games over 500 in the second half, do what the A's in Seattle did in the first half? Hey, if they could do it, the Angels can do it.
Well, yeah, here's the thing, though. If they're going to do that, that means they have, a combined probably 27 to maybe 32 games against Houston, Seattle, and Oakland.
Well, that's good, though. They got to beat at least they get to play those teams, Oakland and Seattle.
Sure.
So
I don't think you want to.
But
I don't think anybody wants to play. I don't think anybody wants to play Houston.
I'm not going to factor them into any sort of championship futures thing, though, because of the fact that playoffs are one thing, winning a championship completely different. All right, so are you going to do any futures, Steve? By the way, Steve added Oakland. The crazy man put Oakland at 50-1, so I give him credit for making such a gutsy move there.
Hey, Anaheim's 200-1, baby. I'm not picking them, but they are.
Meanwhile, I'm going to add 3 more to mine, and I'm going to put in there's no way at this point that I'm not going to put in Washington at 20-1. I mean, with everybody coming back healthy, they're not going to get odds. I mean, if they go on a run in like a month, they're going to wind up being back down to 10-1 and in first place. So I'll take them one more time at least at 20-1. I'm also going to go down on the Dodgers again for the third time at 8-1. I was able to get them at 16-1 last time. They're 8-1 now. I still think that's okay. And I'm going to go back to the Yankees again at 5-1 because they're going to make a blockbuster trade. And I could easily see them getting red hot in the second half and that number going down. And I'm going to wind up taking them anyway, so I might as well take them now, even though they're down to 5-1. So I'll take Washington, Dodgers, Yankees. Who are you going to go with?
I'm just taking one, and it's going to surprise you, I think. I think it's going to surprise you. I'm going with Cleveland. This is not a team that I don't think I've, in our 3 years of doing these shows, I don't think I've ever really said a good word about Cleveland, but I think that Cleveland is a sneaky landing spot for Machado. And here's why. Here's the reason I've been waiting to really talk about this the entire time. And I talked about this with an Indians fan, in fact, over the weekend, who did not know this little tidbit. Did you know that Manny Machado's brother-in-law is Yonder Alonso?
Okay, no, I didn't know.
You didn't know. So that is a big thing, and Yonder Alonso just got a big deal with the Indians. So Yonder Alonso will be an Indian for a while. Machado's sister is married to Yonder Alonso, and their family is super, super close.
Okay.
So if there's somebody who says, Manny, who would you like to stay with for quite some time, it's Cleveland. I think if he had to choose a team to stay with for quite some time,
Cleveland,
and keep his family
and he would
together,
go over obviously to third.
He would have to go to third because.
Okay.
But could you imagine that infield with Ramirez?
No, that would be a great move.
And Machado, it would be the best infield in the history.
What would they have to give up?
Baseball.
Is there a particular player or two that Indians have?
They have to probably give up Tristan McKenzie, the starting pitcher who is in Double-A, who has been really, really good.
They could afford to give away starting pitching, that's for sure.
They could afford that, and then possibly they got another. They got Mejia. I'm not sure the Orioles are going to get, but they have a third baseman named Nolan Jones, who is hitting the lights out of the ball in a high A ball, and they have two shortstops, Willie Castro and then Yu Chang Jang, another two shortstops. So you would get a starting pitcher and then a couple of infielders. Prospects, and then you've got yourself Manny Machado.
You see, and if I'm Cleveland, I'm going to go ahead and add in another piece, if possible, to try to get Britton.
Yeah, I don't see why not. If you're Cleveland, maybe you say, okay, you could take old man Jason Kipnis with you if you want. I mean, I know he's only 30, but he's better. Well, hey,
no.
Well, where's he going to go? Where's Jason Kipnis going to go?
Well, he'll just go to the bench. They can use a guy on the bench. But anyway, fact is that makes a lot of sense because the Indians have a lot of starting pitching, and if they make that move, then they don't need any young shortstops or third baseman. So it makes a lot of sense to make that type of deal with Baltimore. And if you can swing Machado and Britton, then 14-1 for the Indians would go down dramatically the next day. Futures odds. See, I already have. You already have Cleveland at 9-1 too, so that would add in at 14-1, which is nice. I have him at 12 and 7-1, so that's why I figured I'd be able to wait. But
no, I don't. Steve had Cleveland at 9-1. I've never had Cleveland.
Oh, Steve had him at 9-1. So this is your first venture into Cleveland. Okay,
then
it makes sense.
It's the first time I've ever taken Cleveland, and I think that I think Philadelphia or Cleveland is where Machado ends up. I still don't like Philadelphia at 14-1, even with Machado. I think it's Cleveland. You put Machado.
If you haven't gotten Philadelphia or the Braves like 2 months ago, then you are not taking them now at 12 and 14-1. That's just throwing your money away.
Hey man, I got the Braves at 70-1.
Well, then that makes sense. But
right, and I have Milwaukee at 25-1, another possible landing spot for Machado, and I'm not going to re-up on that when Milwaukee's at 16-1. So I am thrilled with my Cleveland at 14-1 because the last time we talked, they were 9-1.
All right. Well, look, hey, if Cleveland can swing that move for Machado and for Britton, then all of a sudden they are looking like an absolute World Series contender, which they aren't right now, and that would be a huge trade for them. So, hey, I hope so. I've been picking Cleveland to win this World Series for the last 2 years now, so hopefully they can get through and make it happen. Because they have Francona, and that's also going to help them in the postseason, especially with guys with the Boston Yankees situation where they got rookie managers.
Yeah, best manager in baseball, Tito Francona, him and Joe Madden, and that's why that was such a fun World Series to watch them maneuver the lineups and stuff like that, and the pitching, even though Joe Madden almost blew it, but still. I love Tito Francona. I liked him when he was on the Red Sox, which was like a cardinal sin around here. But it's such a fun guy to watch the way he manages game. Way better than watching Alex Cora or Boone.
All right, Scott, appreciate it. Enjoy the All-Star festivities, and we'll be talking to you again after the trade deadline. We'll have our next show early in August. Can't wait. We'll be able to recap all the big trades and go through all of that. And if anything huge happens between now and then anyway, like the Machado deal, maybe we'll go ahead and do this again sometime in the next few days, next week or something like that. So we'll talk more baseball. We're going to do a lot more of these shows once things start picking up here after a normally, as usual, slow first half of the season. But things start getting exciting right now with the deadline approaching. So we'll talk to you again real soon.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Scott. All right, so also I want to thank Steve Merrill, of course, from Coverage for joining us. Once again, we'll be back soon to talk more baseball talk on the Prime Sports Radio Network. We've got our golf coverage tomorrow. That's the next show here on the network. Don't forget, we have Friday and Saturday golf coverage as well with the Open Championship, big event this week in professional golf. So that's our next show tomorrow, 4 o'clock, Prime Sports Golf Open Championship preview right here on Prime Sports Network. We'll see you next time.